Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. It's great to be with you on this Wednesday. Bob Buehner's in the house.
Good to see you, Steve.
Good to see you. Sean Carey's in the house.
Awesome to see both of you guys.
And last but not least, Kyle Alexander, who, by the way, is one of the great guys on the planet. Really is. Awesome guy. So lucky we have him. And he can stop by to say hi. Same story. We're talking about what's going on with his life and the whole deal. Asking me about tonight. And, of course, who comes bursting in to let us know what the results were of the Danville Ward 82 election.
Yep. There's a news flash, Steve, from the Montour County Board of Elections. Kevin had 7 votes out of a potential 4,000 that could have been cast.
Yeah.
Finished first. None of the above came in second with 4. And there were some write-ins for Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck that had to have been a groundswell of support for them. They might have carried the day.
How many of the 7 live on A Street in Danville?
Well, 3 of them live in one house, and 2 of them receive cash.
Yes. So, so somewhere there's 4 people walking around in Danville that may have been responsible for this, whatever you want to call it.
Muse?
So once again, the conversation turned completely to one person.
Why does that not surprise me at all?
In the end, it was all about him.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Steve, you're on the road today.
I'm on the road today. We're going to Scranton eventually. Bob's already given me directions as to what to avoid.
You're good to go. You're covered.
Well, he can't go up Route 11 from Northumberland to Danville, which is the shortcut to Scranton.
Well, the last time I was here, actually the next to last time, because obviously I came back for the golf tournament the next day.
Right.
We went to Penn's Tavern on the 7th of May, 15 days ago. What was the issue?
Let's see, north, a little south of the, south of the,
rock slide.
the rock slide, south of the bridge.
So rock slide. So we had to go through Sunbury on 61, pick up 890, go all the way around, come down Brush Valley Road, and then get back onto 147, get to Penn's Tavern.
Right.
Turned out to be an awesome night. It was great. Tom and everybody, awesome. Tom, Liz, the whole, everything. So now I'm back 15 days later. I want to get to 80. Mudslide. Is it a mudslide?
And rock slide and close the road.
Mudslide, rock slide, but this time on, what, 11?
Route 11 North.
Yeah. Is it me?
No.
No. Well,
no, I think it is.
Some say a coincidence, others say fate. So what's happening up in Scranton tonight, Steve?
Greater Scranton chapter is having its annual dinners, their 41st annual dinner. And this will be the 20th consecutive appearance I've made at that dinner. So I've done almost half of them. Last year was James Franklin. This year, the guest list is Carolyn Keeger, the new women's basketball coach, Jay Paterno, and Dr. Wayne Sebastianelli. They'll all be speaking. And our good friend Donnie Collins from the Scranton Times-Tribune is being honored as the alumnus of the year up there. So that's terrific. That's what they're doing tonight at Fiorelli. So it'll start at 7:30. Based on what Google Maps is telling me there, I should be on time.
You'll be good.
Unless there's another rock slide somewhere on Interstate 80.
Believe me, anything's possible.
It's too bad we weren't as close to Hughesville. You could take 118 all the way out to the back mountain. That's
Beautiful
a nice little
ride.
I took that road for years because, remember, the first 2 years I went to college at Penn State, it was at Penn State Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah.
And that's in the back mountain area.
Yeah, no,
what
Bob
they call
knows
the
that.
back mountain.
Yeah.
Bob knows that road real well
So
too.
I go out past Harvey's Lake,
Absolutely. Ricketts Glen State Park.
Glen State Park, up and down, up and down, up and down, until you get to Hughesville.
And-
Hey.
And the best thing you can do is have your deer avoidance monitor on the hood.
Oh, believe me, I had a couple of friends in college who unfortunately had to run in with a deer. Not good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know the 118 way very well. In fact, I was talking to the McGoverns, because Connor McGovern, Nick Urey, running back, they're both Lake Lehman High School graduates. They just retired Connor's number at Lake Lehman High School. And Connor's dad is, I think he's the superintendent of schools up there. I was telling you, the first ever play-by-play I ever did in my life was basketball, the Penn State Wilkes-Barre campus against Allentown Business School. And the game was December 8th, 1977 at Lake Lehman High School.
Wow, there should be a plaque there, Steve, for that.
I think Connor McGovern probably had more impact there than I did. And that's the first one I ever did. And I remember Penn State Wilkes-Barre won. They scored over 100 points, and our player of the game was a guy named Bernie Janowski, who had 32 points. So, yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember it.
Well, you ought to drive by there on the way to Scranton tonight for old time's sake.
Last time I was there, I delivered a commencement speech.
Wow.
There. It was 2011, May 2011. And I delivered the commencement speech. It's the last time I've been in that area.
Yeah.
So,
well, on your way to Scranton, will you be stopping in at the Dunder Mifflin Paper Company?
just so you know, okay, there'll be no stopping anywhere. I've got an hour and 49 minutes on my Google thing here, which means I'm only getting there with 40 minutes to spare. So there'll be no stopping in to see Michael and the gang
Exactly.
from the office over in Scranton.
Straight shot.
Yeah.
Because I have a funny feeling I'll be slowing down a couple times along the way.
I think Interstate 81 in the Wilkes-Barre area is a challenge.
Yeah, well, I just did this. I mean,
You did coming back from the Penn State
yeah.
lacrosse game on Sunday.
Yeah, so I just did this. And then I'm not making another one of these until August. I've got 4 in August. So.
Vacay or a Spikes trip?
Well, no, I'm going to speak in York.
Oh, I thought you meant like
here,
making that trip up to the Connecticut,
here.
I mean.
I'm
Okay.
going to speak here because Jamie and I were talking about that today.
Oh, you're speaking tour, yeah.
Harrisburg. And then Jack and I are doing the Duquesne Club speaking engagement in Pittsburgh.
A tradition unlike any other.
And that's a highbrow place, the old Duquesne Club, downtown Pittsburgh. It reeks of elegance.
Bob, it's amazing when you stand up in front of the group and you glance around the room. And before you even say a word, you think to yourself, wow, I'm the poorest dude here.
Yeah, when in the room there's a couple melons, a few scapes, a few Carnegies.
I'm thinking, these people want to hear what I have to say? Are you kidding me? I want to hear what you have to say.
And can you give me some stock tips along the way?
My goodness.
Yeah.
And I've told Jack that before. I'll lean over. We're the poorest guys here.
Yeah. No question about it. The Duquesne Club is just elegant par excellence.
They're great people. They're great people. And they ask great questions. And we have a good time at it. It's a lot of fun. But you do realize that on the ladder of financial success in life, they're a few rungs up from me.
Yeah. It's called trust funds, Steve.
And it's not just a few rungs.
They're at the top of the ladder.
Right? It's like looking at a fireman's carnival ladder. Okay.
Growth stock mutual funds. Help me out here.
Which
Which
what you have to
ones?
say about football? I mean, even the wait staff, I think, it makes more money. So we'll be at Fiorelli's tonight up in Peckville, which is just north of Scranton.
What do you expect the new women's basketball coach to say about things at State College and Penn State?
What do I expect?
Yeah, coming from where she came from, to Pennsylvania.
Well, first of all, she's a dynamic personality who will be able to captivate the room very quickly. Because of her personality and her style of play, she's going to get people to buy tickets there. And the style of play is she's a 94-foot coach. She wants to she wants her teams to be in your grill defensively, and then she wants to go offensively. People are going to gravitate toward that. And when they hear her talk about her vision for the program, they're going to be impressed with it because she has that kind of personality. The next part is, too, she must think Penn State is a pretty special place to do something like this, because she's leaving her alma mater to do this. Normally it is the other way around. It is Jamie Dixon leaving Pitt to go to TCU, for example.
Sure.
Even though Pitt had already... Again, you've got to know who you are, and I've talked about this with Pitt many times with basketball. The complaint about Jamie Dixon was, well, look, he can't get us past the Sweet 16. Well, how do you feel about that now?
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Sweet 16 now without him? All right, so now let's get back to her. She's leaving her alma mater because of the great potential she sees at Penn State. That she can take Penn State to another level and has the ability to take it further than maybe she could with the resources compared to Marquette.
Yeah.
And Marquette's made the NCAA's 3 straight years. She's won Big East championships, but I think she sees an even greater path here at Penn State as to what she can do with it based on talent level, resources, and so forth. And I think that's going to come out in the speech tonight as to when she talks to everybody. And look, she has that ability. She relates easily. She is not somebody that's shy. She's also the ultimate competitor. I mean, she's talking about trying to run after punts in Beaver Stadium, at halftime.
Yeah.
When I meant her to catch the darn thing.
Yeah. She had to look at the Penn State wrestling program and the Penn State lacrosse program and see what relatively new coaches could do in a pretty rather quick timetable.
Well, Cale Sanderson, he leaves Iowa State. Same story. He leaves his alma mater.
Absolutely.
To come to Penn State. And Cale Sanderson leaves Iowa State because he looks at Penn State and says, I can get where I need to go. And that's kind of a bad way of putting it because of his personality, because he's not really about himself, okay? That's. But I think I'm kind of saying that in a general sense here, not about Cale personally. But national championships are a distinct possibility on a year-in and year-out basis by taking the Penn State job. Look at the level of talent in Pennsylvania in high school wrestling. You've got it all here in your backyard. And when you're looking at 1/3, not quite a third, but maybe 25 to 33%, somewhere in that range, of Division I wrestling programs are in this state. Hey, Bloomsburg's Division I, Edinburgh's Division I, Pitt is.
The Lock Haven
Lock Haven, Lehigh. I mean, you've got all these schools, Clarion. I mean, they're all Division I in the state. There's 75, 76 Division I wrestling programs. Well, part of that is that Pennsylvania has the ability to feed these programs. Now, they're not all obviously from Pennsylvania. Bo Nichols from Texas.
Yeah.
Okay. They've had great success recruiting in New Jersey, but it's all within that radius that you can recruit. Now you look at Carolyn Keeger. I think it's, you have some really good high school girls basketball talent in the state, but you do have to expand out a bit more. Just like men's basketball's had to expand out a bit more. Yeah, you do get in men's basketball, Alani Walker in Reading comes along once in a while.
Yeah.
But between essentially the Ohio border and that corridor in southeastern Pennsylvania, the number of Power 5 basketball talent isn't there in the state for the most part. I want to say Cam Reddish is from Norristown, but to me that's down in the corridor.
Yeah, that really counts as Philly.
Yeah, so that's down in that corridor down there. And that's where you have to go to, that corridor between Virginia, Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, into Jersey. That's about the area that Penn State has to do a good job of consistently mining. Now, for women's basketball, you can go with more Pennsylvania kids probably along the way. Wrestling, obviously, Cale's going for the best of the best, but there's a lot of great Pennsylvania talent.
And now, the interesting thing about that is the second best wrestlers in Pennsylvania end up in Iowa, and the first team comes to Penn State now.
Yeah. Penn State wrestling is a lot like UCLA basketball in the 60s and 70s. Freshmen were not eligible to play in the 60s. The UCLA National Championship team got its tails beaten every single day by the freshmen led by a guy named Ferdinand Lewis Alcindor Jr., a.k.a. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Power Memorial High School.
They couldn't wait for him to go to the varsity. Right? Well, that's the way Penn State wrestling is. There's so much talent in that room. You're going to get better because now Penn State is the destination place for wrestling. I mean, for anybody. You want to get to the Olympics? The destination place is Penn State. Carolyn Keeger's hoping to make that for Penn State women's basketball. Jeff Tambroni is making that now for lacrosse. It's been Jeff's had to work very, very hard to get to this point. Very hard. I mean, people may not realize this is his 9th year there. He's been to the Final Four before. And I asked Jeff at the end of the interview I had with Jeff on Monday about how can you help your student athletes because they've never been, but you have. And there are ways you can do it, but they're all going to have to experience it. But there's going to be more media in Philadelphia than ever, more obligations than ever. Oh, and by the way, every single person on the planet that thinks they've met you along the way wants tickets. You have to be able to manage that. I mean, guy here in this building that doesn't know the difference between the ball and the stick, was always asking about tickets. Now, who might that have been?
Yes.
I didn't know he was into lacrosse like that.
No, he's just into, he's just into, where's the success going? Can I be a part of it?
Yes.
Well, you just hope that's going to be a great scene on Saturday because they want to declare a whiteout, so they've been wearing white jerseys the last bunch of games, and so just hope the alumni sector in Phillies is going to come out in droves. And then for Monday for the final, they get there.
Yeah, they wore the white jerseys on Sunday out in East Hartford.
Yeah.
I'll say this one side note on the East Hartford thing. When you look out the back, I've never been in that stadium. I'd never even seen that stadium before.
Really?
Never. No, never have. Well, because when I'm getting out of there, I'm getting out of there. I'm like 91, 84 gone. I'm like, we're not there sightseeing. Hey, let's go over the stadium. No. Okay? So I'd never been there. But I look out the back, and of course it's built at the intersection of what used to be 2 runways for Pratt & Whitney aircraft. And it's called Pratt & Whitney Stadium now. Well, I'm looking at the back of Pratt & Whitney. That's where my dad worked. Right? Now until he started his own business, which Kevin has now. But that's where he worked. He worked in experimental on the Boeing 747 engine there. I have no idea. I'm only going by what my parents told me, but supposedly on Crosby Street, a couple streets away, that's where my first 2 years of my life I lived. I'm looking at this is pretty neat. All right, let's go back to the game. All right, we're at the bottom of the hour. We'll come back with more in a moment. Great to have the gang all here, and it's really cool that Lawrence installed a lock so we can keep certain individuals out.
Yep.
Who now is, from what we understand, is running Danville, and at this moment is personally trying to shovel out a rock slide to get his his borough back on track. I mean, you can't put a price on leadership like that.
No, you can't, and thank goodness we don't.
PennDOT won't take his calls.
Huh?
PennDOT won't take his calls.
Wise men at PennDOT.
Put it this way. Okay, PennDOT has the same policy we do. Here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Brewers Outlet, Brewers Outlet, Brewers Outlet. Coors 30 packs, $16.95. Coors 30 packs, $16.95. Coors 30 packs, $16.95. Brewers Outlet, Brewers Outlet. Coors 30 packs, $16.95. Yeah, Brewers Outlet has Coors and Coors Light 30 packs for just $16.95. Get it? We got it. Pickles, ice, cigars, lottery, and all your beverage and party needs are a one-stop shop at the Beverage Supermarket, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. The gang is all here today. Bob Buehner's in the house. We're going to talk about the Phillies game in a minute. And Shawn's in the house. And because of Mark Lawrence putting a lock on the door, someone is not in the house, but they're in the building.
Oh, change the locks on the front door.
He was explaining to us. He says, and my butt is going to be right there in front of the TV on Sunday. Right? No, I mean, look, there are a lot of fans of CBS this morning. It's
Jane Pauley, Sunday morning, big fan.
Jane Pauley, Sunday morning, love it.
He loves watching cars go around in circles for some strange reason.
Well, if you want, we can all get in ours and go around the parking lot a few times. Got to make them feel better.
Get them warmed up.
Yes, the Biffer. All right, before we get to the Pirates here, and we'll get more into this in the next part of the show, but Bob brought up something interesting about last night's Phillies-Cubs game. Now, the Cubs win in their 5th walk-off this year, so they are actually number 1 in walk-offs this year. The Cubs had 2nd and 3rd. Was nobody out?
Nobody
right?
out.
Yeah, nobody out.
Bottom of the 9th, down 2-1.
Now, who's up? Is it Baez? Who was
Baez hit the game-winning single.
No, before him. It was two guys before him.
Yeah, so 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah.
My point is, who's up with 2nd and 3rd? Was it Baez?
There was an out in between.
First base is first base is open. All right. So why don't you? I mean, it's irrelevant as to somebody being on first base. It's completely irrelevant because one run wins, right? It's 2-2, right?
No, it's 2-1.
2-1. So it's 2-1. Right. So you got 2nd and 3rd. The guy on first base is irrelevant to this.
Yeah,
So why don't you walk them and at least create the possibility of a double play to end the game?
Exactly. I didn't understand it last night. Screaming at the TV.
Look, I understand. I don't know. Actually, I don't understand. The use of analytics in a situation like this. Well, I don't. You're trying to make the task. What's the best route to get out of this thing? Well, the best route to get out of it, because, again, the person on first base is irrelevant to the winning and losing of the game.
Absolutely right.
And I don't get that. That's just standard baseball operate. Now, I didn't watch it, but as to how you guys described it, I'm like, what? My first thing was, why didn't they walk somebody?
It was just amazing that in that situation, the crowd roaring in Wrigley Field, they loved that and relished the opportunity to get that walk-off win. And a ground ball gets a double play, either home and first or a second to first, whatever. And at worst case, a ground ball scores the tying runs, but you've now got 2 outs as opposed to none.
Well, right. I'm at the Astros-Red Sox game on Saturday night, and the Red Sox had the bases loaded, and it was a grounded to Bregman. He went home with it. To force.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it was the other way around. It was Rafael Devers went home with it, and with Christian Vasquez, and it was that's how they got out of the inning. I don't know. I don't know what the analytics card said, but that's, there's also common sense beyond analytics. Scoreboard right now, Cincinnati leads the Brewers 8-6, bottom of the sixth inning at Miller Park. And in Cleveland, the A's lead the Indians 7-0 in the bottom of the seventh inning. Phillies and Cubs tonight at 8:05, on at 7:30. And, of course, your Pirates.
Oh, please.
Lost to Colorado last night, 5-0. And with that, we go to the ever-dependable, ever-reliable Chris Mack in Pittsburgh. Hello, Chris. How are you today?
How you doing, Steve?
Doing really well. Another great attendance night at the ballpark. They won 7 of their last 10 games, and nobody showed up last night.
Yeah, it feels like we talk about this every spring, right? Like we sit and wait for school to end or for the weather to turn or both to happen, and then finally you hope that folks will start to show up, and that's what I keep waiting for. It was I don't know. You could blame it on it was a cloudy, drizzly day. You could blame it on it wasn't a NL Central rival. You could blame it on, like I said, school wasn't out yet. I could probably blame it on a million things, or you could just blame it on the fact that people still aren't sold on them until they, this becomes a prolonged stretch or a prolonged run, which may or may not be fair to them. But I think it's, that's the fans' prerogative, and they're going to continue to hold out probably.
All right, let's get to the Cervelli situation. The Pirates have had a lot of injuries. He got hurt again last night. What do we know about Cervelli?
I think they just called it I don't think they even gave an official report last night before everyone left the ballpark, so I imagine it'll be a chest contusion, something like that, and we'll probably move on from there to I would think they'd give him, with a day game tomorrow, they might give him a rest tonight and then see how he feels when he gets to the ballpark tomorrow morning. But, I mean, even if he's healthy enough to go, I think the bigger question around Cervelli is he ever going to, is he ever going to wake up to this season? Because while the production from both he and Diaz, the catcher position as a whole was the worst offensively in the majors, or at least in the National League through the first month and a half of the season, at the very least during this most recent road trip, at least specifically the series in San Diego, Diaz started to hit the ball. So it's rapidly getting to the point where you've got to play the better guys. That same question exists maybe at, it's already been put in play at third base, where Moran has gotten the bulk of the starts over Gung, who still has not snapped out of it. It's starting to come around at shortstop, it seems, where Kevin Newman may get an increasing amount of time over Cole Tucker, even though Tucker's got a great glove. He's still hitting under 200. We may see it come to fruition in the outfield when and if Corey Dickerson is healthy, that Reynolds and Cabrera will continue to push for playing time on either side of Starling Marte, with Polanco still being limited. I mean, if they're going to remain in the quote unquote hunt, and they, mathematically they are, even if they're
sure they are,
4.5 back in the division. I mean, if they're going to remain in it and turn a 7-4 road trip into something more substantial, and look to survive during the absences of Tyone and Williams, they're just going to have to play the better offensive ball players.
I want to ask you about Josh Bell. He is really, sometimes you can lean on a guy and he can carry you for a couple of weeks. Has he become that guy in the lineup that you think maybe you can lean on him for a couple of weeks here and there?
I mean, it certainly seems like it. That's what the numbers bear out over the course of the first 7 weeks of the season. And if that continues, then that's one of those things that gives you hope that, again, they can survive the absences of Tyone and Williams, and survive Archer failing to find himself over the course of the last month, and survive maybe some bumps in the road with the bullpen, or bumps in the road offensively with some ball players. If Josh Bell's able to do even 75% of what he's done over the last 2 to 4 weeks, then he'll be the kind of guy that is essentially carrying the team on his shoulders. I don't know if it's realistic to expect an 1100 OPS all year, but that's what he's done over the last month. And when it's real easy to sort of cherry pick the road trip and say, okay, those 11 games he did this, or even the past week because he was NL Player of the Week. But it really does go back beyond just the past week or the past 12 games or whatever it may be. it's really the majority of the season now Bell has produced like this. So maybe that's the difference between the 19 Pirates and, say, 18 or even 17, in that they have a guy who can offensively carry the team when there are so many struggles happening elsewhere.
Well, he's averaging almost an RBI a game. He's on 160 RBI pace right now. He's been dynamic. And I want to get into something that, because I was in Boston, I was at the Red Sox-Astros game at Fenway on Saturday.
Okay.
And Garrett Cole pitched Friday night. And Garrett Cole had a chance to talk with some of the writers up there and with the broadcasters up there. And they were talking about the fact he leads the majors in strikeouts. And he said, look, they said, what's the difference? He said, in Pittsburgh, they wanted me to throw sinker sliders, two-seam stuff. He said they would not let me throw a four-seam fastball. He said they wanted as few pitches as possible. They did not want me to throw a four-seam fastball. I got to Houston. They looked at me and they said, what are you talking about? You throw 1 billion miles an hour. Throw your four-seam fastball. Well, last year, of course, he had, 270 strikeouts. He already got 93 this year. Glasnow's also flourished away from Pittsburgh. All right? Is there some question in Pittsburgh now about how they approach their pitchers?
I think had there not been some adjustments by Jamison Tyone in the second half last year, had there not been some adjustments by Chris Archer in the final month of last season, even if it still hasn't borne fruit yet this season, there may be more questioning. And there are still some fans that say, hey, if you're going to give Ray Searage all this credit, and Clint Hurdle and Neil Huntington by extension, all this credit for the reclamation projects they had over the years, and guys like Burnett and Liriano and Happ for the half season he was here, then by all means you better bury him for Cole and Glasnow, and now maybe perhaps in some ways for Archer coming over and struggling. And his last 4 games have certainly been evidence that there's something going on with the swing and miss factor in his game. But I also think, again, I'm still sort of, I don't want to say jury is out, but not totally decided on that, because, like I said, Tyone last year, they let him do that. He went to them and said, listen, I think I can use this to my advantage. And they let him go up in the zone with a four-seamer. They've let Musgrove do it on occasion. Williams doesn't quite have the steam to pull it off, so they've been more conservative in letting him do it. And I think with Archer, they've let him do, for the most part, after tweaking a couple little things when he first came over, maybe trying to add a little bit of a two-seam fastball in there, they've more or less, I think, told him, just try and get swing and miss. Try and get through 5 innings. And maybe Archer is a case study of why their system does work sometimes, because how often have we seen Archer, last night included, leave a ball game after just 5 innings and he's up around 95, 100 pitches.
Right.
So I would be more adamant about going down that path of the Cole Glasnow criticisms if it weren't for the fact that I had seen some growth in that regard from guys like Tyone and Musgrove in the second half of last season. But I will say, it's definitely something to continue to watch.
Which then brings me to the other part. Obviously, the Pirates were here in State College for 6 years. They had a conservative approach on pitch counts, very conservative. Yet their guys are still going on the IL. Okay, it used to be the DL, but are still going on the IL. Williams is there now. Tyone's there now. To me, that also brings up some questions about, as to what works and what's not working. I don't care what they do. They're still getting guys hurt. Yeah,
and it wasn't a very scientific study, but Gene Collier, who I know you know, of the Post-Gazette, wrote a really interesting column this past Sunday for the Post-Gazette about just the number of guys that are on the IL, not just in Pittsburgh, but Williams and Tyone were sort of the jumping-off point for it, and all the other injuries they've experienced early this year. The number of guys on the IL across the major leagues. Now, part of that is a byproduct of it's no longer a 15-day DL; it's a 10-day injured list. So teams are much more aggressive in a positive way in putting guys on the list and saying, hey, get better. You're only going to miss a week and a half rather than 2+ weeks. But I also do think that there is something to look at. This is the one thing I would take away from what I noticed this year with their pitching, and that was that a lot of their starting pitchers especially didn't start out in games in spring training. They started out pitching side sessions and bullpens. And I understand most pitchers do that, but when game action had already started, guys were still throwing on the backfields at Pirate City or throwing live bullpens or live VPs rather than game action. I don't know if there's a correlation or a connection there, or if that just happens to be coincidence, but I do think it's something worth watching, and I do think when a team has 20 guys on the injured list, whether through some of them are through freak accidents like Marte and Gonzalez colliding in center field or not, it's still something to keep an eye on, and something that, to be quite honest, they don't have the depth, guys 26 through 40 in the organization, to sustain it for a long period of time. They're a team that has to be, I think, more preventative than many others in Major League Baseball, and can't really embrace the idea of throwing guys on the 10-day like teams like the Dodgers can, because they have such starting pitching depth. So it's another thing to kind of keep an eye on as we think, okay, is this team, as we're coming to terms over the first third of the season with, is this a good team who's just been hit by a lot of injuries, or is this a team that's really not that good but has fought to keep their head above water due to the efforts of one or two guys here and there? It's one of those things to kind of add into the mix when you're trying to decide what team is this.
Well, I give them credit. I actually do think the Pirates are a good team. They are not a great team, but they're a good team, and they've shown, I think, better depth because of all the injuries. I think that some people realize. The Reynolds kid has stepped in, and he's helped. He's played well. I mean, so they've had some guys that have been able to step in. I think that's been big, and the fact that Colin Moran has become better, even though I think he gives almost as many runs as he produces, but still, that's a different story. Yeah. But I think to this point they've done more than hang in. They've been good.
Yeah, and the schedule kind of picks up a notch. You get the Dodgers this weekend. You get there's the Brewers and the Braves on the horizon for a 2-week stretch. You get into late June and around the All-Star break, and you start to see stretches with Dodgers, Cubs, and Cardinals. Oh my! And you go, okay, well, if you can get healthy before then, maybe you got a chance. Or if Josh Bell can continue to roll the way he has, then maybe you got a chance to stay in this thing.
Right, exactly. Look, does the schedule even out in that way? Sure, but guess what? If to me, I also have another theory on that. That's very simple. That weren't the Pirates the one people expected to quote beat up on as part of their schedule? The Pirates are doing that to you, so that that tells me how good they are. So it's
and you could look at their schedule too, Steve, and you could say, all right, what would this team be if it weren't for the 1-6 that they are against Arizona, for example?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, so there's lots of ways you can sort of split things and slice and dice the data at this point. I think the question really over the next 2 to 3 weeks, or maybe over the course of the next month, is does Bell continue to hit? Do they have guys continue to show up in support of him in the lineup, like Cabrera, like Reynolds? And then do they also get somebody to step up in the rotation? Can Chris Archer turn things back around? Can Musgrove and Lyles continue to pitch the way they have? If all that comes together, then, hey, there's nothing saying they can't be right where they are right now come the All-Star break or even late July and be 4 or 5 games out and right in the thick of things.
Absolutely. Chris, thanks so much. Always a pleasure. Thanks for the time.
Oh, absolutely, Steve. Always great.
Chris Mack joining us from Pittsburgh. We'll come back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Sunbury Motors.
When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you. The other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years.
So the 2021 NFL Draft is going to Cleveland. And the 2023 Draft is going to be in Kansas City. They haven't picked the 2022 location yet. Could be Danville based on the government there.
Yes, and the landslides or rock slides and mud slides that are, what's the word, cutting off Danville from actually the rest of civilization.
Yeah, if they were to host the draft, that part of it.
On your travel plans, whether Route 11 north from Northumberland to Danville is still closed by a rock slide.
I'm taking 15 to 80.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong that way.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I can, but but it starts at 7:30. I can just see at 7:15 panic setting in.
You know, Steve, I'm no longer the district attorney, so you're going to have to keep it at least at the speed limit. I can't get you off anymore like those several instances in the past.
Yeah. Just so everybody knows, that never did happen.
We're getting the untold story here.
I also know that, for example, say I were to speed through Danville. I know somebody who runs the government there that would triple the fine.
And then treat you to a round of golf.
Oh, yeah. How about that one today?
Yeah.
He wanted to know if you and I wanted to go out and play golf with him today.
Where have you been?
Now, we're leading up to the Purdy tournament, and he doesn't play at all, right? And then he's out there, you know, like Larry the Lumberjack, cutting down trees left and right on every shot and can't understand why it's happening.
No.
Right? Now, today, he'd like to go play golf. Really?
I'm here. Let's go.
The Purdy tournament is 50 weeks away.
He's just warming up.
He can warm up all you want. He's still going to go all over the place. Larry the Lumberjack doesn't change, even with some practice.
You're listening to News Radio 1070 WKOK Sunbury. You can hear us anywhere in the world with the Sunbury Broadcasting Corporation app.